What's up, everybody? Welcome to another long-awaited episode 002 of Sideways in Time. Obviously, if you pay attention to the show, we didn't have a show going last week. That was all Patrick's fault. I'm going to blame him. No, it was my fault. It's been a hectic couple of weeks in real life. So all good things, nothing bad. But because of my bullshit, we weren't able to do the show last week. So here we are, back in all of our glory. On today's show, we're going to go through a couple of details about the upcoming Journey Pro. All our shows are secret shows. We're also going to get into Big E winning the WWE title. Samoa Joe drops the NXT title, also NXT 2.0. And then we're also going to touch a little bit about Zelina Vega being dropped from the 9/11 Raw. And a few other little details I'm sure we'll get into from there. We're also going to do our Mount Rushmore this week, which is going to be our favorite heel turns in wrestling history. And then our main event, our What If, is going to be What If Eric Bischoff and his, I forget what the name of the company was, but his...
Fusion Media.
That's what it is. Yeah. Future... Words are always a problem. Anyway, we're going to talk about what if Bischoff had bought WCW and what would have happened from there. So yeah, that's today's show. And of course, introductions. I'm your co-host Lucha Chris. Over here to this side. Oh, I did it right this time. This guy over here.
Nice.
Look at
that.
And only
almost professional.
So close. The always wonderful Patriot Pat. What's going on, Pat?
Oh, not much. How you doing, my friend? It's good to be back. I missed you last week.
I know, man. We don't like to be separated for too long.
Yeah, it's rough. It's we're almost like Siamese twins that have been separated. I'm sorry, conjoined twins.
Yeah,
that have been separated, and you can't. That was a horrible joke.
You know what would be a good joke? If you dropped a joke of the week on us, we're gonna try this out.
Oh, okay. A joke of the week. So, did you hear the one about the Polish wrestler that made it to the finals of the Olympic gold?
I didn't.
Okay. So there's this Polish wrestler. Shouldn't have been in the Olympics at all, but because of drug testing and all that stuff, he was the only person that Poland could send. So he goes through the matches and goes through the qualifiers. Miraculously, he starts winning. He gets to the finals. He gets to the gold medal match, and he's facing the Russian wrestler, who the Russian wrestler has never lost. So the coach comes up to me. He's like, "Look, just go out there. Just do what you can. You've already made the country so proud. Just do your best." So the Polish wrestler goes out. He's scared beyond belief. He's standing there. Big Russian, 6'7", 340, just all muscle and hate, just looking at him. And the ref signals the beginning of the match, and immediately Russian dives in, wraps him up, slams Polish wrestler to the ground. Polish wrestler looks up, sees a set of testicles above him, so he bends forward and he bites with all his might, and the crowd hears this blood-curdling scream. Bam! Russian's on his back. Polish wrestler pins him. Boom! Poland wins the gold in wrestling at the Olympics. Afterwards, coach comes up and he's like, "I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you won. How did that happen?" Polish wrestler goes, "You will not believe the amount of strength you get after you bite your own testicles."
Oh, what the fuck? He needs to get those checked out, man. He needs to maybe get some reconstructive surgery. When you choke on your own nuts, there's a problem. Awesome. That was hilarious. So yeah, we might, depending on how awful his jokes are, which usually they're pretty fucking good, we might do this as a reoccurring thing every show.
I'll throw some Patriot Pat originals in there.
That was a good one though. I like that one. Nothing like a good balls in the mouth joke.
Well, I figured I'd stick with the theme of the show.
We always have our balls in our mouth. So yeah, like I said at the beginning of the show, we're gonna go ahead and talk about some details of Journey Pro. all our shows are secret shows. Obviously, again, if you're in Missouri, specifically Kansas City area, Journey Pro Wrestling is the creme de la creme of the wrestling promotions in our area, and they have a secret show coming up. It was really cool how they did the venue announcement, because
yeah, that was a lot of fun.
With everything going on, rosters have to change. The lineup and the way things are booked has to change from time to time because of either between COVID, other types of restrictions. They'll have somebody booked and then something last second will come up and they won't be able to do it, like what happened with the last show. Journey Pro fans love Journey Pro, so it's not really always about the talent they have booked. It's more about just all of us getting together and having a great time watching some awesome wrestling. That being said, because of that, it was kind of a joke in a sense to name this show All Our Shows Are Secret Shows, because this time around they decided to kind of do a scavenger hunt on the location of the show this time, which was a lot of fun. We are obviously still searching for it. If you haven't seen on our social medias, at Lucha Chris TV, at Gone Patrick, at Journey Pro KC, there's been a scavenger hunt, so nobody can actually say it on social media specifically where the show is if they figured out the hints. But they could do word of mouth. We could say it on this podcast if we knew where the hell it was. But it is, depending on when you're listening to this, it is September 17th. That's this Friday, unless you're listening to it after the 17th, clearly, at 8 p.m. And the card is being announced as we speak, so I'm not really going to get into that. Just know that if you're coming, it's going to be worth it. It's a free show, but even if it was a paid show, it'd be worth every dime spent as usual. Patriot Pat and I will be there, assuming we can find the place. So if you see us on the side of the road, wave us up and like, hey, shout it out. This is where the show is, you idiots.
I can tell you, it's not at Arrowhead, and security's really tight there, and I had to buy a new phone because they confiscated it. So
yeah, it's also not in the public bathroom of some random establishment in the middle of the night, when people are using said public bathroom when you're trying to ask
of all
where
the
show
places
is.
that we looked, I think that one had the most potential.
That guy was not stoked that I walked in on that. So if you haven't seen it, jump on social media. Journey Pro shared it. I've shared it. He's shared it. I'm going to get the direction right. It was a very unpleasant experience, but apparently people thought it was funny. So let's see. So yeah, anyways, Journey Pro Wrestling, always, regardless of you show up to the show, check them out. Twitch, I think it's Journey to Anarchy on Twitch, if I'm not mistaken. You can go and kind of check out some of the previous shows. I believe they're also on IWTV. It's just, they're a great time. They're extremely supportive. And also one thing to make note of, this is a very big note. In all seriousness, it is a free show, but they are accepting donations. The whole show is kind of based around collecting donations to benefit mental health and mental health care. All the proceeds that go in through the donations will be put into that. Let me see. The Wyandotte Center for Community Behavioral Health Care is where the money is going. So if you show up and you've got a couple bucks you can spare, no matter how much it is, it's definitely going towards a good cause. Obviously, all of us know, mental health ain't no joke. It's very, very still fresh in our minds what happened with Daphne, which was terrible. So, and we all know somebody that's got these issues. I've got them myself. I can't speak for Patrick, but I know, I can almost assume we've all got our issues when it comes to our mental health. So,
and it's nice to have a place like Wyandotte to where you can go get help.
Absolutely.
And on a serious note, if you need help, go get it. Yeah, there's no shame in asking for help. What the hell?
Not at all.
It's shit. They're your tag team partner. Go get them. Get the hot tag.
Well, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. my DMs are a click away, and even if you don't know me or I don't know you, if you're struggling, just know that there are people that are willing to. I'd rather hear you unload about what you're struggling with than have to hear on Twitter or somewhere else that you decided to take the other route. So
yeah, I would much rather hear about. Yeah, I would much rather have you in this world and never meet you
I agree.
than be scrolling through Facebook or Twitter and see that a friend of a friend took their own life because things got too hard. Because things are never too hard. I can attest to that. If you see my banner on Twitter, I am a combat vet. Not to use the phrase, but I've seen some shit.
Right.
And I'm living proof that it's not as bad as what it seems. Whether it's environmental, whether it's in your head, it can always get better. So yes, please, even if you think you need help, go get help. Go talk to somebody. It's fine. There's no shame in that. There's
and also just remember too, if it doesn't get as dark or as deep as suicide, if you're not to that level, but you still need something like, I'm not, because I don't want to, there's no level to needing help, no matter how severe or how minute you think it might be. If it's just as easy as you need somebody to just unload on, just, talk about how you had a rough day or whatever the case may be, please reach out to somebody. And again, to tie that back into this show on the 17th, that, like I said, this whole thing is kind of based around the idea of getting that information out there for people who need it. So if you come out, please donate whatever you can. And if you can't, that's fine too, but just, reach out. We're all a family out there. Journey Pro is more and more family every show. It grows every time I meet new people. Pat meets new people, and it's amazing that the what Journey Pro does, and they speak out on every. I mean, I could go on and on about how awesome these guys and girls are at Journey Pro. So, anyways, come and join us.
I will say, just to wrap it up before we go into the card, kudos to Journey Pro also and kudos to the performers. The performers are sharing their own stories. It's not easy to share to one person, let alone have it a blast on social media. So kudos to them, because that story can help one person who's in a dark place, who's in the wrong place. Good on them.
I totally agree. And that's, and again, and we'll move on here in a second, but I that's one of the reasons why I continue to go to Journey Pro shows. Not only are they just very welcoming. It's like, I don't know how you are, but like, the old punk movement was a big deal to me growing up. It kind of helped mold, aside from metal and various other things, the punk environment was always very welcoming. If you were an outsider or you didn't belong somewhere and you found that scene, you show up and you were a part of something. And that's what Journey Pro reminds me of that. And Anarchy too, over in St. Louis, and a few others. And I think it's just the wrestling community as a whole. And, it's everybody's there for the same reason. We're all there for wrestling, but at the end of the day, we get there and we show up to every show and we meet new people and we find friends and family out of it. And I know people that have met each other, like, guys and girls or whatever, that have met each other. Bones. Hey, cut it out. Relax. Anyways, this guy. I'm gonna edit this part out because he's being a dick. Stop.
Nah, leave it in. People love dogs.
Go lay down, buddy. It's okay. Go lay down. Eat your peanut butter. Anyway, so yeah. Anyways. Journey Pro is just, it's a great place. So if you can come up, hang out with us, say hello, please do. If you can donate, please donate. If you can't, that's fine too. But just know it's all going for a good cause, and it's something that means a lot to everybody right now. So we're gonna go ahead and move forward here. It's a little change in the lineup this week. We're gonna go ahead and jump straight into our buddy JCB from Banned from Ringside podcast at BFR Pod, on Twitter at BFRJCB, and then we've got the other co-hosts at BFR Bill and at BFR Zach with an H. Also, every Friday, check out their new episodes. They're seriously one of the best wrestling podcasts, the most entertaining podcast there is. I'm not just saying that because I'm biased. But yeah, so as usual, Jason's got a few things he needs to let out into the to keep himself from exploding with anger on a weekly basis when it comes to some of the wrestling misfortunes. So we're gonna take a break for a second. We're gonna hear from JCB, and then we'll be right back with you.
This is Banned from Ringside.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy JCB, Jason Cornelius Bell. I'm back with my weekly rant. We had the relaunch of NXT 2.0 last night. Some good, some bad. Braun Breaker, not necessarily the greatest name in the world, but he's kind of the focus a little bit of my rant this week. He came out and challenged LA Knight, or LA Knight challenged him, however you want to call it, and LA Knight proceeded to lose to one Braun Breaker. First off, you can call him by his real name, by Steiner, Rex Steiner, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, maybe that would give a little more of a focus on who he is and kind of get him over off the jump without even talking about his backstory or whatever the case may be. He came off as a little goofy, but he looked good in ring. But if you'd have connected the name to Steiner and Braun Breaker, maybe that gets him over a little more. My problem with this whole thing is LA Knight. So this man comes in, a lot of hype, a lot of bluster, and he's kind of been on a roller coaster ride so far. So I'm thinking to myself, you know what? He's in the Fatal 4-Way this week. This could be the chance to put the strap on him. You can make him the new champ of this brand and kind of go from there. Not only does he lose to Braun Breaker, what a name, before the title match, he comes in at the end and eats the pin in the title match. Okay. I'm not even going to talk about how they, destroyed Kyle O'Reilly and put in Von Wagner. Who the fuck is Von Wagner? Okay, that was another problem with NXT last night. A lot of names, very little introductions. You've had at least 2 weeks to start putting some names to faces, and all of a sudden you're putting Von Wagner into the main event. Neither here nor there. LA Knight is the bigger disappointment here. He has come in and has been made to feel like a major star, and not only did he not job out once, he lost a second time on the same night. There is no reason in the world that he should have lost to Braun Breaker. If you wanted to put Braun Breaker over, you got a ton of jerks in the back. They let Drake Maverick get ran down by some jabroni. I don't even remember the dude's name. Kind of my point. You could have had Braun Breaker destroy Drake Maverick and then have LA Knight come out, and if this is what you wanted to do, because this whole Samoa Joe thing is kind of throwing things for a loop, I'm not sure that Ciampa wins the title to begin with, but if you wanted to have Ciampa to win the title and pin LA Knight, that would have been a better way to serve LA Knight in the long run. All you did right there is just make LA Knight look bad, not once, but twice. The pin to Ciampa, not a big deal. The pin to Braun Breaker, that's a big deal. I don't care if he comes back and costs Braun Breaker the chance at the championship with Ciampa that they teased at the end. The bottom line for me is they fucked up one LA Knight, and you can take that to the bank.
This is Banned from Ringside.
And so I can say I totally agree. Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch last night for the revamp of NXT 2.0, but I did see bits and pieces of the entire show, parts I really liked, and I will go back and watch it in its entirety. Parts, like Jason just said, that are very questionable. They're doing cool things with questionable things all at the same time. So, as he said, we'll start with this as our transition into the curtain jerker of the night, NXT 2.0. So, previous to this, Samoa Joe did a little social media post talking about how he was relinquishing the title yet again, due to what he said was injuries, and then he'd be back. What do you think about Joe dropping the title?
I said this on Twitter. My conspiracy theory brain is taking over, and
we're taking over.
And I look at it like, Vince let go of.
Sorry. Anyway,
Vince let go of Joe. Triple H hired Joe back, and Vince is in control. I don't know all the workings of it, but
Right. I don't think any of us really do.
Yeah, it seems a little hinky and a little too convenient. And if Joe is injured, speedy recovery. Because he's one of my favorite performers.
Absolutely.
Well, even if he wasn't one of my favorite performers, I wouldn't want him to have a speedy recovery. I don't want to see anybody, sidelined and stuff. But
Agreed.
I don't know. I did watch last night though. Having Ciampa get Goldie back was pretty cool.
I agree.
In fact, I watched it this morning. A couple of are we going into the NXT or are we just sticking with Joe right now?
No, let's go. I mean, that's part of it. So we can go ahead and go into that.
Okay. I don't like the color scheme. I am wearing my old NXT shirt. I like the black and gold. I don't like the 90s vomit color, or colored vomit, I guess I should say. But a couple of things I did like the area around the ring, they made a lot bigger.
They did.
So I think
it
that
kind of looks like the old NXT setup crowd wise, or at least closer to it than the CDC or CWC.
The hard cameras on the other side. Another thing I noticed, the camera angles. I'm digging the camera angles. They're using a lot of different ones. It's not just either parallel or perpendicular.
Right.
They're doing some sharp angles and stuff. So I'm digging that. The crowd was really cool. The way they had it set up. And this is coming like last show. I was talking about how I loved the chain link and all that stuff.
Right.
This is a different arena, so the looks outside of the color, I dig. The color, it's too loud. It's too much.
I will say, I agree and I disagree as far as the aesthetic and the rebranding and the color scheme. It's a little Nickelodeon-esque. It kind of has but at the same time, it's bright, it's flashy, and it probably draws more attention than the black and gold, which, don't get me wrong, I love the Triple H heavy metal influenced it's the black and gold brand, but now it's not anymore. It's kind of the rainbow tie-dye brand. So unless they get, Dude Love to come in and be general manager or something like that, then it would make sense. But I don't hate it. It's still a little early, depending on if they completely rebrand the championships and all that. We'll see. That's kind of exciting too, because I always love new belts, assuming that they don't complete. Like, I hate the WWE titles, like the Universal and the heavyweight title.
The looks of them.
I get it though. It's totally about branding. You do not mistake what title that is or what company it's for. So I totally understand, and I'm not knocking it in that sense. I just think it's an ugly belt when you've got like a prestigious looking belt like the AEW title, or the Ring of Honor title is even beautiful, or New Japan's titles. Like, they all look like world titles. WWE's is just, the title looks as important as it is, which isn't very.
It just looks like their logo. I mean, that's
right.
all it is
Exactly.
Their logo.
So I get it. And it is what it is. I don't hate it by any means, but it's just not my thing. So anyways, regardless, the aesthetic is a little weird and it's going to take some getting used to, but I'm not going to totally shit on it just yet because I don't hate it yet. But I do want to get into, like you said, Ciampa winning. All for that. The problem, like JCB said, is that you're building up LA Knight. First of all, he was one of the best feuds that NXT has seen in quite a while.
Oh, brilliant.
With Grimes and that $1 million title. But then we have the debut of Steiner's boy, not Scott, but Rick Steiner's son.
Yeah, Braun Breaker.
Braun Breaker, which I think somebody said his name is Bronson Steiner.
His real name, I think, is Bronson Rex Steiner or whatever.
Right.
And they were going to call him Rex Steiner, I think. And then they changed it last time.
Okay, so I totally get changing the guy's name and trying to get him off on his, not get him off. Whoops. Get him going on his own. without the name behind it. But first of all, they dressed him like a Steiner.
Mhm.
Second of all, he fucking looks like a Steiner. The dude is jacked. He's got his
Yep.
dad's face. Like he looks like a fucking bulldog. He's
They
a little.
called him.
Go
They
ahead.
called him. They were like, "Wow, he's very dog-faced gremlin."
It's his dad.
Yeah, and it's
His
like
dad was a
that
dog-faced
was
motherfucker.
Yeah, so yeah, that was his dad's nickname. So it's like, they're teasing the
Right.
relationship, even though I mean, everybody knows that that's Steiner's kid.
Okay, and then get rid of a Braun just to make another one. So anyway, he's a little goofy, but in the ring, I did watch most of that match. Dude's pretty fucking good already, but my problem is, and just like JCB, LA Knight is a star. He was a star in Impact. He was a star on NWA. The dude can talk. The dude can go. He's a little older, but I don't give a fuck about age as long as you can still go. Like, and he's also in that four-way match for the title. So obviously they go into that angle where they bring Braun in, and they have this little promo with each other, which sets up a match between LA Knight and Braun Breaker. While he also still has the match at the end of the night. Now, if they're going somewhere story-wise with this, maybe we're jumping the gun at being upset with this thing.
No, they're not.
Exactly.
Two problems with that. One, LA Knight requested the match.
Right.
If he's a heel, it should have been Braun requesting the match and LA trying to get out of it and being forced to do it, saying, "Hey, I got a match tonight for the titles." No, LA was like, "Oh, you go out there in 2 minutes and I'll show you what's up."
Right.
Secondly, when the show ended, they were doing the index wedding, which it was corny, but I loved it.
It was one of the better wrestling weddings I've seen in a while, though.
One of the better corny segments, is silly. Johnny
hatchet?
Gargano has the comedic timing of a rock.
yeah. He does.
in that bit. They pulled away and there's Ciampa watching the screen. Why he's in the back watching the wedding, I don't know. But then Braun comes up and he's all, "Hey, congratulations!" And they do a stare up at the end. And my wife just came home, so my dog's going nuts. Is mommy home? It's a she. She's got that deep bark you can't tell. Oh, can you hear it? I'm on my earbuds, so you might not be able to hear it.
Oh, I can hear.
Oh, okay. That's how I Yeah, is mommy home? Nah, she's just a guest on the show. Hi, baby. Luch is waving. All right. So the payoff for that, I mean, you have the potential for a feud between Breaker and Knight, and then they go right into the stare off with Ciampa and Breaker at the end. So it's it was a little convoluted.
Well, and it seemed like so far it seems like, and I'll go back to that whole thing here in a second, but it seems like so far they did a lot of introducing characters without introducing characters, which is their way of pushing the whole developmental side of it. I love you too. And if you're listening and not watching, he just mouthed "I love you" to, I would assume, me, but probably his wife.
It was you, Chris.
Thanks, man. So anyway, that's one of my slight gripes about the show, is that they did show a lot of new talent, which is good. That's what they said they were going to do, but there's also no setup for any of that talent. But let me jump back though. So again, LA Knight gets beaten, and then the wedding happens. Firstly, and I'll segue back into the main event here in a second. But the wedding was awesome. First of all, when everybody raised their hands when they said, "Does anybody suggest?" and Dexter opens up his suit jacket and he's got a fucking hatchet there, and everybody shut the fuck up real quick. That was hilarious. Him speaking finally was just as cool as Orange Cassidy screaming at Chris Statlander, at All Out. Like, that was hilarious. So that was cool. The whole wedding thing, that's one of the better angles on NXT for the last several months. So I'm all for that. Then fast forward to the main event, Pete Dunne, Kyle O'Reilly, LA Knight, Tommaso Ciampa. I'm all for Tommaso winning because he's the shit. But why did Kyle O'Reilly not take that pin rather than LA Knight?
I don't know. Why
he
did they
seemed like he would have been the better choice. Why make LA Knight lose twice in the same night? It doesn't make sense. Unless there's a story in place, which, like you said, we highly doubt it is.
I don't know what story you have. Why take Kyle out and put who was that guy in the main event? I don't, no offense to him and stuff, but
I know. Well, look.
Why are you all of a sudden in a title match?
And I just saw that his boy Bobby Fish just got signed to MLW.
Yeah,
which is cool as hell because he's perfect for that. But
and
I didn't even know that happened.
Guys, he'll train those guys really well.
Right. So yeah, NXT 2.0 was not a complete failure. It was entertaining, but it is night one with this whole reboot thing. So we'll see as we progress. I'm all for Ciampa being the champ again because, and then he had that moment with his daughter at the, at least on social media and all that. So that was cool. Obviously, he's a face. So I'm all about that. Moving on from NXT, obviously, it's a new day. Yes, it is. Because Big E cashes in on Bobby Lashley to take the WWE World title. And let me say, I said this on Twitter, my God, if WWE wants to continue to not necessarily compete with anybody, but to stay at least in the conversation of good wrestling, they need to start keep this momentum with booking guys like Big E in these spots because he deserves it. You can tell just by jumping on Twitter, every single fucking person involved in wrestling, fan, wrestler, or otherwise, was blowing up about it. Everybody's stoked. What do you think?
I didn't see one negative tweet, one, oh my God, Big E. Everyone was like, yeah, woo, finally, and yeah, it was just, it was cool. I had to work that night, so I went back and by the time I had watched Raw, I already knew, which,
right.
I'm not a fan of spoilers. And which the wrestling world, it's almost impossible unless you watch it live or stay off social media until you watch it.
Especially on Twitter.
Yeah. I watch it and I was very happy that he won. Yeah. So like two of my favorites, Ciampa's been my boy since DIY. I've loved him. And Big E, I always thought when Big E was Big E Langston and he was Dolph Ziggler's bodyguard, I was like, ooh, this guy's got something. And that was 8 years ago. So I mean,
yeah, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah. So having him having two of my boys as champs, is really, really cool.
Also, Brody Lee would have been so fucking stoked, man.
Oh,
there's a graphic somebody made on Twitter, and I wish I could shout out the artist, but it's Big E sitting on the apron with the title, kind of just looking down, and then you've got Brody kind of in this dust above him, looking down on him, and it was such a cool. I almost got a little choked up when I saw that picture because, dude, he would have been so fucking stoked.
And it's one of those things you think of where it's like, God damn, if Brody were here to see that, because Brody and E have been boys for years.
Long time.
Yeah. Amanda? I mean, is it Amanda Huber?
I think so.
Is that Brody's wife? Yeah. She said when she had to tell the kids that their dad had passed away, she called Big E and had him come in. That's how close they were. Is that she wanted him there when she broke the news to the kids. I mean, you don't get any fucking closer than that, friendship wise. So
for sure. And obviously he had that relationship with a lot of people too. I mean, they just two very, very, very genuinely good dudes in the business. Mm-hmm. Of course they're going to be close. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was super cool.
One thing I'm wondering, because you look at WWE now, and you can't compare WWE and AEW.
No,
I'm sorry,
not at all. Not even a little bit.
It's like comparing a Disney Channel or a Nickelodeon sitcom
Yep.
to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They're both sitcoms, but they are vastly different, and
Yeah,
they're written for
100%.
audiences. So I think if they leave, because Big E is so popular, especially with kids, because he is a 300-pound, 30 whatever year old kid. He's just a giant, 10-year-old.
He's a big unicorn man.
Yeah. So I think you leave the belt on him, because they're doing this, they're doing what they did back in the 80s, getting the young kids in there. If you look at the Raw audiences, it's a bunch of kids. So if you leave the title on him, have him be the baby face for a while. I'm not saying a 3-year Hogan run, but at least give him
a good run.
8 months, a year, 18 months, something in that, where he is the baby face and he is kissing babies and stuff. Because I see nobody better to do that, to bring just that happiness and joy and stuff, and bring in
the power of positivity.
Yeah, exactly. And bring in heels that are gonna pose a real threat. Bring in heels that are monsters, that are evil, and he's beating evil. If you're going for the young kid demographic, you have the hero who it's just the hero story to where he's got some conflict. He doesn't know if he can win, and then all of a sudden he wins, and little kids are gonna love it and stuff. And
I agree.
I think if they go that direction, then they can't lose. If this is just a transitional thing, I think it's a waste. To rebuild your audience, from a younger demographic. I think you got to have him be champ for a while.
I totally agree. And there's no denying. First of all, New Day's been around for what feels like since Hogan was still hot. They've been around forever. Their merchandise sales are probably still if not the top, one of the top sellers of merchandise in the company for that long. Like, I don't care if he was a halfway decent wrestler, he deserves that shot, because they've put in so much work in that company over the years. They gave it to Kofi. Kofi had an actually pretty fucking good run up until obviously he got the title got taken in like 3 seconds from Brock Lesnar. But I mean, even Xavier, who's possibly, very easily the weakest link, but still a very good wrestler. They got he's bringing King of the Ring back. So there's a good possibility they could give that to him too. Like, those guys deserve the world. With all the tag title reigns, Big E's had numerous, or I think maybe at least 2 IC title reigns.
Yeah, 2 IC titles.
And they're just, you can't go wrong with any of them. So if there's a lull period in your company and you don't know who to do what with, put it on any of the New Day, because they're going to carry that shit along. Like, so, and that's not at all what happened this time. Like, Big E is deserving of that title 100%. He's one of the strongest dudes in the company, pound for pound. He's one of the most entertaining dudes. He's one of the most pro wrestling dudes, and he's one of the most sports entertainment dudes. Like, everything equals champion on that guy. Like, Big E is the shit. So I'm super stoked about that. I think that was the right choice, assuming that they don't flop it somehow, which I'm not counting out. But I think they're gonna. I think he deserves a run, and I think they know that. Also in WWE news, obviously we just passed 9/11, and we have Patriot Pat here, who's probably going to have quite a bit to say about this as well. I didn't know this beforehand, but so Zelina Vega, was her dad a firefighter?
I honestly don't know. I just know that he was one of the victims.
Yeah. So regardless of the details, and I'll look it up here in a second as we're discussing it, but her dad died at 9/11 during everything that happened with the Twin Towers, and she got gear that was inspired by her dad. made because she was supposed to wrestle on that Raw. And apparently, due to time constraints, they pulled her match from the night. Now, I will say, any other night for time constraints, I get it. Zelina's not a huge draw. People love her. That's not discrediting her abilities. She's not a huge draw. So on any other regular night, dropping her match sucks, but it happens. In this particular situation, in this particular night, there are other things on a 3 fucking hour Raw that is not doing shit anyway. And this isn't the past Monday night's Raw, was it? It was the previous Monday.
This was SmackDown on the 10th.
SmackDown. I'm sorry.
So you only had you had 2 hours, but
okay.
Still.
But regardless, there's plenty of things. Like, it would have been just good on WWE to just say, you know what, let's just give her this match, even if it was 5 minutes. Let her go out there and do her thing for her dad. Like, not, and again, you know, obviously I'm a fucking huge AEW mark, and their crowd service is impeccable. AEW would have had at least 7 minutes for this woman to go out and for even just for her have this moment to kind of give to her dad, you know, in some type of tribute. I think it's horse shit. Some people don't think it's that big of a deal, and maybe it's not, but that's kind of the point. It's not that it's a big deal. It's that you could have just left the match on the card. What do you think?
You had, on the eve of the 20th anniversary of 9/11, in Madison Square Garden in New York City, you have a victim of one of the attacks. You have the daughter of one of the victims on your roster, who is popular, who is known, and you schedule her for a match. She's in her gear, and you cut the match.
Taking pictures backstage in the gear, saying she was ready.
Like you said, any other night, fine. You know, it happens, but it is just tacky and classless and soulless. And you know, did Brock and Roman need to go so long? Did all those matches need to go so long? Did all those matches need to happen too? I didn't even watch SmackDown. I was going to watch it the next day because I was working that night. And then when I saw all that shit, I was like, no, fuck that. I'm not watching it.
Like I said, they could have given her 3 fucking minutes. They could have given her 5 minutes. Like, and people would have bitched about that too. But
on top of that, this is the day that Peacock and WWE released that fucking documentary about how SmackDown was the first live event after 9/11. And then how the next day Zelina was speaking at 9/11, and you couldn't do something like that. Just it pissed me off so much, and you know
it was pointless. It was pointless. There was no real reason for it. No matter what excuse they used, there's no excuse for it. You could have made time for that.
Look at okay. Earlier, I said you can't compare AEW and WWE.
We said it
as a whole show, but in certain instances you can. Why? Let's see. AEW in Chicago, CM Punk debuts. AEW in Pittsburgh, Britt goes over. AEW in Cincinnati, Mox goes over. AEW in Cincinnati,
fan service.
Brian Pillman Jr. got a main event spot.
Yep.
Brian Pillman Jr. got a main event spot. Brian Pillman Jr., amazing talent, but he is not main event level. But you know what? God damn it, Tony Khan said, we are in your fucking hometown. We're going to give you a main event match on Rampage in your hometown. You are going to go over. We are setting up a fucking storyline for you.
Because what's hurt?
And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was cool. And then, you know, I started following Pillman on Twitter and seeing him, how excited he was, and the Bengals did shit with him, and he was on the throne and all this stuff. It helped him. It was just it was a feel good. It was a goodwill thing. They're making people want to do.
They're making people happy to work in that company because they're able to not only please the fans like us by giving us those moments as well, but also by giving their talent those moments to take with them, because it's a moment in time. You can take that moment back at any time. Like there's so much TV that they have. They can do anything. It's not going to hurt them this week that they put somebody who's not a main event talent in the main event. And it's the same with Zelina Vega. They didn't have to put her in the main event. She could have been the fucking opening match. It doesn't matter. Give the woman 5 minutes.
She could have had a little squash match. Would have been fine. She would have got over. She would have been able to point up, kiss her hand, point up to her dad, stuff like that, and it would have been a nice tribute to her dad.
It's just a big fuck you is all it really was.
Yeah. And,
intentional or not, it was a big fuck you.
And the other thing is, like, it was at Madison Square Garden, and all you saw on Twitter was the wrestlers talking about how hollowed it is, how epic it is, how this and that and the other, and how great it is and fantastic and historic and stuff. And and you couldn't have a moment like this to where she could have that moment and she could look back and she could say, I honored my dad 20 years, almost to the day after he died in a terrorist attack. And imagine the good on them she would have had for them by doing that. She's already probably bitter about that company anyway. Her man's over here, in AEW having a great time. She resigned to be with Malachi, and then he got released. So yeah, she's already kind of salty. Is it a big fu to her that she's asking for unionization and now they're screwing with her? I don't know. I don't know. I just know it pisses me off. It was done. It was the wrong thing to do. And if you go on Twitter, a lot of I saw LaGreca, Sean Ross Sapp, a lot of well more established in the wrestling community than a couple of assholes from Kansas City. They were even like, what the fuck? Okay, a couple of assholes from Missouri. No, I'm talking about. I'm not an asshole. Oh, okay. so
not
yeah,
right now anyway. But yeah, no, I agree though. It's just it wouldn't have hurt anything to give the woman a few minutes to pay tribute to her dad. And not only that, but then the fans of WWE and outside of that would have been like, okay, good on them, man. Like, we're not the biggest fan of what they're doing right now, but that was super cool of them to allow that to happen.
It would have been
especially for a
story.
company that was so pro patriotism and like you said, the whole 9/11 thing when it happened, they took that very serious. Way to
tribute to the troop shows.
Like so that whole thing was bullshit, and I wonder. There's not a bit. She didn't really say much about it. She just said, I guess, never mind or something like that on Twitter. And I'm sure she probably won't speak out too much more about it because what's the point? Everybody's on the same page, But speaking of her husband in AEW, real quick, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this just because we're kind of a couple weeks behind. But I do want to mention a few things about All Out. Because I don't think we didn't talk about that on the last show, did we?
No, because it was the Sunday
we announced
after.
the card, right?
Yeah.
So real quick, and again, we can make some points here because it was universally extremely a very well received pay-per-view, and rightfully so. Now, in retrospect, though, I will say that anybody who hasn't been paying attention to wrestling in the last 5-10 years, maybe it wouldn't have had the same effect on them. I'm sure they would have still felt like the excitement because everybody was so excited, and it didn't help that it was in Chicago, who's always a hot crowd. But because of all the surprises, if nobody that was watching really knew who they were or their importance, maybe it wouldn't have had the same effect. But so the pre-show, which is usually a shit show on the other program, was a 10-man tag team match. It was the Best Friends, Orange Cassidy, Chuck Taylor, and Wheeler Yuta, which I'm not as familiar with, but versus Jurassic Express, which was Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, and Marco Stunt. They defeated the Hardy Family Office. What?
No, you said versus Jurassic Express. They teamed with Jurassic Express. Versus the Hardy Family Office.
That's what I said, damn it.
Okay.
I didn't say that. You're right. I didn't say it.
So we got it on video.
Whatever.
But hey,
I'll cut it out. just make myself look fucking awesome. I am the holder of the power of editing around here. So I'm gonna sound great. And a matter of fact, I'm gonna make it look like you said that shit. Anyway, so you had Jungle Express and the Best Friends.
Jurassic Express. Jesus Christ.
What did I say?
Jungle Express.
Whatever. So any fucking way. Versus the Matt the Office family. I'm gonna say it wrong on purpose. Fuck you.
Yeah. Okay.
It was Matt Hardy, the Private Party, and the Hybrid 2. Anyway, yeah, it says the Hybrid 2 on here, but it was 2.0, was it not?
I don't know. I didn't.
Whatever. So, anyways, it was awesome though. Obviously, Best Friends and Jurassic Express went over, rightfully so, because they're fucking super hot right now. And Jungle Boy is one of the, I'll every show I'm gonna say something awesome about Jungle Boy. Yeah, but anyway, so they beat him by submission, and then we had a nice surprise. The first surprise of the night, we had the return of Butcher. So Andy Complains on Twitter. He's also the guitar player for Every Time I Die, one of my favorite bands of all time. So anyway, he returned after some time off. I think he was injured, and he was also been in the studio off and on with the band. But he made a return, looked bigger than ever. His hair was all wild. The dude is a crazy son of a bitch. And they beat up everybody. So anyway, so we've got Butcher and the Blade back together, which is super cool. We also the curtain jerker of the night, which was probably the best way to start off the official beginning of the show. The TNT Championship, Miro versus Eddie Kingston. Let me just say, I would have never, even though I had kind of thought about it before, I never really thought about Eddie Kingston versus Miro. That shit had me on the edge of my seat the entire fucking time. Obviously, Miro goes over, and I say obviously only because I think we all kind of knew that he was going to retain, although it would have been, I wouldn't have been extremely surprised had Kingston gone over. But I think if they're going to do that, they'll play it back while he's in his hometown. They kind of have this hometown thing going on. So, they go back to New York. Maybe he takes the strap. I doubt it. I think Miro's going to run with that thing for a while, rightfully so. I will say
I like Miro as a champ too.
I do too, man. He's another one. He deserved this time. The only other complaint I have, and I saw somebody earlier on Twitter mention this, and I can't remember who it was, or I'd shout it out. Oh, we also have some shout outs we have to do at the end of the show. Don't forget. I forgot what I was going to say.
Somebody on Twitter about Miro and Kingston.
Oh, about how the TNT title is a TV title, technically. And so when Cody had it, he defended it every week on TV. Nice. But since Miro has had it, it hasn't really happened like that. And if it wasn't for the TNT title being a TV title, we would have never had Eddie Kingston introduced the way he was. So I will say that's one little gripe I have, is that we don't see it defended every week when we should. But Tony Khan has also said that it's not technically a TV title. It's not a mid-card title. It's the TNT title. That's just, it's, which is cool too. So I maybe that's their way of kind of getting away from it being a TV title. But great match overall. Right guy went over technically. Then we had Moxley versus Kojima. Super stiff match. I think I kind of like this whole Moxley is the doorway to Japan.
Yeah. Moxley is the doorman that the Japanese wrestlers have to.
Which is cool. It makes perfect sense, honestly. Nobody else in the company right now, other than like Omega, would make any more sense in that role. So totally makes sense. It keeps Moxley out of the title picture, which he needs to be relevant, but also kind of away from that, because they got a lot going on with that right now, and I think we're gonna have a lot more going on with that here in the near future. But anyway, he goes over Kojima, and then we get another surprise, which popped me hard. I don't watch a lot of New Japan. I know who this guy is. Like, if you don't know, Suzuki pops out after the end of the match to a major pop. And then basically round 2, it was almost like it was some kind of quick gauntlet match. Him and Suzuki start going back and forth. If you don't know, Suzuki is a stiff, gnarly wrestler. The dude is the epitome of Japanese strong style. He don't play. Suzuki don't
Well,
play.
I know we were both watching this, and I get a text from Luch, and he goes, "Holy shit, Suzuki!" And I reply, "I know. Who the fuck is he?"
Dude,
Because I don't know anything about New Japan. I just, when he came out and the crowd went nuts, my wife goes, "Who is that?" I go, "I don't know, but I think he's a big deal." And then she goes, "Is that his hairstyle?" and and I was like, I don't know if that's scarring or. And then I looked and I'm like, no, that was a conscious choice.
yeah. No, I think he's badass enough that hair just grows that way. Like,
Yeah,
so anyway,
probably.
he's
Scared
got
to
an
grow.
extensive history in New Japan. And if it's real easy, go look up almost any match you can find on YouTube or wherever else. The dude is fucking insane. So that was super cool. And then
Well,
obviously,
and
go ahead.
a side note, everybody should follow Kojima on Twitter because that is the most wholesome tweets ever.
Is,
oh my god, he's like, I have match with John Moxley. My English is not good. I love bread. Thank you all. And it's like, you're like, bread, oh my god,
the bread thing cracks me up.
I love it. But it's like the Bob Ross of fucking Twitter
for sure. But yeah, so obviously the Moxley Suzuki thing carried over into Dynamite. We're not going to really touch on that too much. It was a great show, but we got a lot to cover. Britt Baker versus Chris Statlander. I personally was pretty hyped for this match because I'm a huge Chris Statlander fan. I love Britt Baker
a banger.
Too. But they really commentary really did a great job trying to put Chris Statlander over as this like big beast, because she did have a size advantage over Britt Baker. You know, her gimmick's kind of silly, but when she's in the ring, she really fucking is really good, and she's getting better.
Some of those moves, yeah. Oh, in a year or two,
oh yeah,
she's gonna be.
Yeah,
yeah.
And especially the way they're booking her now, and the way they're, like I said, they really fucking piled it on heavy on how powerful she is and how she was a definite threat to Britt Baker, which they do a good job of on a normal basis, but they really put it in on her.
Mm-hmm.
The highlight of the night, one of the many highlights of the night for me, was Statlander's on the outside. She, Britt Baker kind of had the upper hand for a minute. She gets thrown to the outside. They start counting her out. Orange Cassidy comes around the corner and starts fucking screaming at her, not like in a vicious way, but like a motivational way.
Motivational.
Like, the fuck up and get in the fucking ring. Like, he's just screaming at her, and she gets in, and everybody's going nuts because Orange doesn't talk much, and if he does, it's not, he's very, his thumbs up is like this, he can't be bothered. So that was super cool to see. That was a very good advancement in his character. And obviously, again, I say obviously, but Britt Baker goes over and retains the women's championship. Good match overall. I don't know if I have a star rating for it. I hate star ratings personally, but it's a fun match. The next match, easily match of the night, if not possibly match of the year. We had the Lucha Brothers versus the Young Bucks for the tag team titles in a cage match. So it was a tornado tag match in a cage. This is goddamn. Do you have any points on this one before I jump in?
There was so many things. Like, one of my favorite things was when Matt and Penta, Matt's the older one, right? Yeah.
I don't know which one's older, but
or Matt's the dark-haired one.
Yes, the one that doesn't dye his beard.
Yeah. Matt and Penta were on the apron, and they each had their respective opponent. They were doing the small package bomb, and they were both like, all right, let's do this.
Is that the spot where they had each other's opponent and they just looked at each other and like, fuck it, let's hurt our people.
There was so many spots in that match that, and I know people are like, hey, I've heard people say it was a spot fest. Yeah, it was a fucking spot fest, but it was entertaining as hell, and they told the story throughout. So
that was going to be my major point on this whole thing. Like, it was a total spot fest. It was, but there's no better two teams. Maybe there is, but in that moment, there is no better teams to pull off a storytelling spot fest than those guys. Like, they fucking killed it. There
was just so much, and then seeing like they're trying to rip the masks off and stuff, and I don't like that too much, because I think, okay, you do that 5 minutes into the match, and then you got another 20 minutes of match where you got a fucked up mask.
Well,
so
I mean, they end up with the crimson mask at the end, so it's not like we would have seen Penta's face anyway.
And so the shoe that Brandon Cutler threw in, that was awesome. That was cool. That was a great.
There was a lot of drama in the match. Like there was a lot of drama.
And awesome. And it was exciting. And there were times where I thought the Bucks were going to win, and I was pissed because I was like, no, I'm a huge Lucha Brothers fan, and I mean, I'm a huge Bucks fan. I was saying, the last show, how I'd love to hate them and stuff, but God damn it, I wanted the titles off them.
Look at that. I took the Bucks in the prediction because I thought there was no way the Elite is slowly assembling. Like, there's no way they're taking the titles off of them. And sure enough, and it's not because I didn't want the Lucha Brothers to win. Look at me. But the right guys, honestly, though, went over. The moment at the end with Penta's kids was kind of brutal and amazing at the same time. Got blood all over his kids.
Ray Phoenix is like, come on, man, let's go back to. He's like, man, come on, dude, I've had to shit since like 10 minutes into the match.
Come on. I almost shit jumping off the top of the fucking cage.
Yeah, Penta's trying to get his kids out of the nosebleed section. Like, come on, guys, come on.
Yeah, but all in all, it was one of the most exciting matches I've seen in a long time. It was fantastic. And the surprise of them getting the titles was super fucking cool. Speaking of Ray Phoenix, I have one of his previous titles here. The Gift of the Gods title. It's, no big deal, but I have it now. So anyway, and then moving on, not going to go over every detail of this. I'm just obviously going to talk about the cool part. There was the 21-woman Casino Battle Royale for the future championship match for the women's title. The two, I didn't put it in the predictions on Twitter because for some reason I skipped it, but my pick was Thunder Rosa. And as we got down to the final four, I thought to myself, it better end up between Ruby Soho, who was the surprise entrant, and Thunder Rosa, who were probably, I mean, by a long shot, they're two of the most talented women in that whole fucking 21-woman battle royal. Obviously, Ruby Soho showing up was super cool. Seeing her joy walking out there, and then after she won, like hugging what's his name?
Hey,
Bryce, yeah, like, dude, that was so wholesome, beautiful. Like, so cool. Such a good another great moment in this show, and a very cool surprise. Even though we all kind of saw it coming, it was still nice that we were right, in that case.
And then when she walked out and you saw her choking up, and I was like, oh, that got me. That got me more than what we'll talk about later.
Right.
Just like emotionally, like, it was pure.
Super cool.
A lot of people were saying they could see a Thunder Rosa Ruby Soho feud because Thunder Rosa was eliminated by Ruby. I was like, I could see a Nyla Thunder feud because Thunder eliminated Nyla, and I think that would be that's money right there.
It probably would really be, yeah. Good. Yeah, because Ruby could do anything from this point forward. Thunder Rosa being one of, if not the best there is right now. I've been a fan of her for years, but she's also just one of the most talented wrestlers over the board, women, men, whatever. She's extremely talented, and a very good acquisition for AEW from what was she? Was she in
NWA?
Yeah, she was in NWA. She came over with the championship at one point when originally. So yeah, another and that's not to give away from the rest of that match. It was pretty entertaining, but I think it was in the perfect part of the card because I don't mean any disrespect, but this is the one that most people would call the bathroom break. Not because, and again, I don't mean
Popcorn
that
match.
exactly because we needed a break. This pay-per-view was, you were gonna OD on just how
I was
piled
I
it
was
was.
exhausted after we watched it. I was tired.
So we needed
I was
we
fucking
needed this
beat.
match where it was to kind of give us, okay, we can kind of jump on our phones for a second and pay attention in the background. We knew what was going to happen at the end, or at least we hoped we did. That's when we
Well,
really chimed in.
And
So
especially with the battle royal, and the casino battle royal where you have people coming out in groups, you can miss the first little bit, and
Exactly.
they're building. That match in itself is just a story within. It's stories within a story. So
right.
yeah, not taking anything away, but battle royals, it's until the end, you're just kind of like, nah.
Which is honestly like it had to have been booked strategically that way because otherwise they could have just done Thunder Rosa versus Ruby Soho and announced it originally that way.
Mm-hmm.
But they needed that padding to kind of give everybody a break for a second and then jump into the next match, which I was extremely surprised about, to be honest. Like they got me, they worked me, and I'm not mad about it. I'm curious to see what happens from here. But Jericho really pushed the idea that there was a good possibility he was going to be retiring. And he didn't really come out and blatantly say anything specific other than, if I lose, I'll go to commentary and stuff. But he made it seem like it was a very legit situation, which was awesome. This is pro wrestling as a motherfucker. They got us. Most of us. I think a lot of people other than me thought Jericho was going to win. You did. Didn't you pick Jericho?
Oh yeah. In fact, if we look at the card and our predictions, I think I got 100%. Yeah.
I believe so.
I picked them all right. Yeah.
So anyway, I don't want to talk about. We'll edit that out too.
I'm coming from a mindset of watching WWE for years, so I was able to predict an AEW pay-per-view based on WWE booking.
Dude, you can ask the BFR guys, every one of them. When I was on their show for almost 2 years, I was fucking horrible at predictions. Awful. And then while I'm watching the said pay-per-view for these predictions, as the matches are happening, I'm like, you know what? I picked the wrong one. I did wrong. I still, to the very end, I thought that MJF was going to win. Now, the cool part, in my opinion, about this match, because they haven't done this a lot in AEW at least, was the false finish.
Yeah.
So MJF gets the pin, but Jericho's foot was on the rope and Aubrey didn't see it. We have another referee come down, explain to her, hey, his foot was on the rope. That referee was not playing that shit. He's like, fuck no. His foot was on the rope. You better restart this match, which is interesting. They don't do that a lot. That usually referees call is final. I don't hate that though. It was cool because it rehyped the match again. People I think there was a slight exhaustion during this match. People were still hot for it, but I think also that there was a little bit of, oh man, like we're gonna crash soon, and it's no fault.
We got to rally, guys. We got to rally to cheer.
So they started to kind of die out a little bit towards the end by that false finish, but once they restarted the match, the crowd went fucking hot again. And then Jericho steals the win. So it ultimately, I mean, it was a cool call. I made my prediction based on what I thought was actually going to happen, not because it's what I wanted to happen. Although I kind of did, to be honest. I did want to see MJF win because I felt like he needed to win more than Jericho. I'll stick by that. But it is what it is. AEW doesn't do a whole lot to piss me off yet. So when things happen that I don't 100% agree with, I'm just gonna have to roll with it because they haven't really disappointed me too much yet.
It's kind of funny because we're like, oh, I didn't like the outcome with this match, but we got to roll with it. And yet, if you look at the flip side with WWE, we're like, what the fuck are they doing?
Right.
What what it should it should be the same thing, but as history, I mean,
we're so
tells you
used
that-
to it going down that way that we expect
Exactly,
it to happen in another company too, and it doesn't. So
that like we're expecting like, okay, we got this moment in WWE, so the rails are gonna the fucking rails are gonna come off and shit's gonna hit the fan. Yeah. So I mean,
Right.
I think we're tainted to a lot of the WWE storytelling for the past 5 years, 3 years, something like that. Whereas AEW is still kind of shiny and fresh. So it's
right.
like, not that they can do no wrong, but we're like, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt because they're new. I don't know. I find that almost hypocritical of us, and I mean, I'm just as guilty of it too.
Right.
But,
I will say,
so
in the vein of complaining about things, they tried. I don't know what the fuck was up with Jericho's entrance. First of all, MJF coming out to the Millennium Countdown was fucking awesome. I knew it was MJF.
I loved it.
I knew it was MJF. Like, there was no way it was going to be Jericho because he said Y2J is dead. And he said it several times. So I knew that was MJF, but it didn't take away. I fucking thought that was great. Having the guitar player from Fozzy play only the guitar to walk Jericho out was real fucking cringy. And the dude who wrote the guitar part barely played it very well. Like that whole thing sucked. Now, that being said, I thought that was awful. I don't give a shit. If that was what was awful and the match was awesome, good on AEW. Moving on, one of the most anticipated matches in the last 8 years. Not because of both participants in the match, but just the idea that CM Punk is back. And CM Punk had his first match back in almost 8 years with Darby Allin, who people had a little were kind of confused by that one being his first match. I thought it was a great idea, personally. Punk comes out to some long boys, which was weird at first, but I thought it looked good. Long boys being his long trunks instead of the regular trunks.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it.
I remember I was like, when he came out, I was like, he's wearing pants, and my wife was like, so my wife's only been watching wrestling for 3 years,
Right?
As long as we've been together. So so she was like, okay, and I was like, no, he normally wears panties, and she's like, that's what we call him, and
that's not what we call him. That's what you call him.
Well, my wife and I.
You fucking nerds.
And so I was like, so I said, yeah, but I don't know if I can get used to this. And she's like, well, I don't want to see any wrestlers in panties. And then she goes out. She's like, I want people dressed up like, oh God, who is he?
Except for maybe Ty Conti.
Yeah. Okay, now you got creepy. You're still doing the look.
I'll just blame it on lag.
Yeah, but I'm still moving. So. But yeah, so I don't know. Him wearing pants was kind of weird. I'm used to seeing his little booty and his little panties.
So there was a lot of cool moments in this match. It wasn't a spectacular match by any stretch.
No, it was solid.
It was a good match. The throwback, first of all, Sean Waltman, X-Pac, was ecstatic about how they brought. There was a couple of moments in the match where they directly took some moments from a match many years ago between Bret Hart and Sean Waltman. There's 2 or 3 spots that were, I mean, almost spot like exactly what that was. So that was super cool. It was a slow burn, which I thought was good. You can't just have CM Punk go in there and just be the old CM Punk again. The whole point of this was, can I still go? So it started kind of slow and it ramped up as it went. It was a total pro wrestling match. It was very old school.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but was Punk ever a fast starter? I always thought that he was a slow burn, and then at the end he exploded.
From what I remember, which I didn't catch a lot of it live in those days, but when I went back and watched a lot of CM Punk stuff later on, He's
Yeah,
very pro wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, he started a little faster because
Right.
ring rust and won on his first match in 7 years, but
Yeah. Cool match.
I thought it was a great match. The storytelling was great.
Agreed.
Just the storytelling in the match. The first go to sleep when Darby fell out of the ring and you saw Punk just like, oh fuck,
Right.
he's just like, come on, god damn.
Yeah,
And,
it was cool as hell,
you know,
man. And he made Darby look good going out. And then they had they had that moment with the three of them and him and Sting, and it was super cool. And it checked all the boxes it needed to check for CM Punk's first match back. Paul White versus QT Marshall. Anyways, so the main event.
Hey.
What? Yeah, we're running out of time. So it was cool. I mean, it was
It
fun.
was what it was. It
was
gave
fine.
it gave Paul his moment and stuff.
Sure. Everybody bitched because apparently JR called him Big Show. Who gives a okay, let me look into the camera here. If the more you guys complain that JR says the WWE title or calls him Big Show or calls this guy this, who gives a flying fuck? You know what's going to be next? He's going to call Bryan Danielson Daniel Bryan. And you know what? I don't give a flying fuck. It's JR and it's AEW. AEW is the type of company where we don't have to give a shit that they mention anything. They're an open company. They talk. They're shaking hands in every company that will shake hands with them. WWE being the only one that won't so far. I don't give. JR is a saint when it comes to being a presence in pro wrestling. He's been around longer than almost anyone. Still one of the best guys in the business, even though he's rusty as fuck these days. He's not what he was years ago, but he's still very good in his role. If he wants to fucking call Big Show the Big Show, suck a dick. I don't care. The dude is fucking awesome, and leave that old man alone. Like, he's gonna slip up. Who cares? Who gives a shit? We all know what he meant. Grow the fuck up. So anyway, that was a match.
Okay, so you might be taking over for Jason Cornelius Bell. We'll just.
Oh yeah,
I'm with you. I 100% agree. Who the
just
fuck
leave him
cares?
alone.
Yeah, whoop-de-doo. He called Ruby Soho Ruby Riot. Oh well.
He said Kenny Omega was the WWE championship right before they went off the air not too long ago. We all know what the fuck he meant. Leave him alone.
Oh yeah. Dude worked for every fucking company and he's 900 years old.
I'm surprised he didn't say, "Oh, the WCW World Champion." Like, who gives a shit? We know what he meant. So anyway, main event time: Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage for the AEW World Championship. Super cool match as usual. Those two can fucking go. Let's skip past some of the moments though, because we gotta move on here. But the biggest highlights, obviously, the match, and this is. Unfortunately, it kind of discredits some of the match because it was a really good match. But the match is over. Kenny retains, rightfully so. I think Christian needs to kind of run with the Impact title. He didn't need both. I don't know why they even put him in this match to begin with. I don't know. To me, that didn't make a whole lot of sense, but it is what it is. Didn't hurt anything. Christian
I
Cage,
think they put him in because they needed an established name. You couldn't have an established name with pedigree.
It didn't hurt anything for the match to happen. I just didn't really get the booking as much, but that's neither here nor there. Obviously, at the end, we have Kenny talking about there's nobody alive that can beat me. Which, in retrospect, the lights go out, they go back on. We get Adam Cole, baby, in the NXT colors. With the Bebe shirt from NXT, basically. I thought that was kind of strange, honestly. He was able to just kind of run in there with all of his likenesses, which was super cool for him. The whole call for Kenny Omega to say nobody alive is a throwback to the old days when they killed Adam Cole before he went to NXT. Super cool throwback. Obviously, he gets the ring. We think he's going to save the day. Super kicks Jungle Boy. Fuck you, Adam Cole. Super kicks Jungle Boy and reunites with his boys. The elite is complete, is what they keep saying. Super cool moment. Adam Cole gets on the stick. He starts talking. Next thing we know,
So I popped like a motherfucker when Adam Cole came out.
Yep. See, Bones liked it. So, anyways, yeah. So,
when Adam Cole.
Great swerve.
When Adam Cole came out, I popped like hell, but I could see it coming because I knew he was part of the Elite, so I was like, oh, he's gonna. Him kicking Jungle Boy spoke a lot to me of the fact of how highly they think of Jungle Boy.
Oh yeah, he was the one in the spot
between those two. Exactly. So I really like that. Just like
they've been pushing Jungle Boy kind of very slow, like he's not doing major things, but it's obvious they're looking at him at all times.
Yeah, so I could see a little feud between him and
That'd
Cole,
be fantastic.
which would be
fantastic.
Would be great
because he's very similar to Adam Cole as far as his wrestling style. They're kind of similar.
Yeah. He's a little more high flyy, but still. But
so was Cole back in the day a little bit.
Stuff, yeah.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah, like not to get off topic too much, but we've been doing that the whole show. But like the way they're using 2.0, I popped huge when I saw that. I absolutely loved Everrise.
Best jobbers in the business.
These guys are fucking great. So the way they're using them, they debuted and they were feuding with Sting, and they threw Sting through a table. How much do you have to trust somebody to have them brand new throw a 60-plus-year-old icon through a fucking table? So right. I could see things happening for them. Okay, anyway, back to Cole and Jungle Boy, or Cole and.
The crazy thing is Cole comes out and I'm like, okay, that was our big surprise, and cool. I'm all good with this. So they're so smart over there, man. And I know I'm going to use the word marking out, but they're so good. So far, their booking in AEW is so fucking spot on so far. And like, again, there's some nitpicks, but
I would give it an A minus
because the swerve with Daniel Bryan popping up after Adam Cole, like, you can't give us more. Like, what are you doing to us? We've already drained our testicles are drained of everything. Dust is shooting out now. Like, we have nothing left. But we conjured up as much as we could from our grapefruits to have even more excitement for the new gangster rap fucking Bryan Danielson.
Yeah, I know.
I love it.
Well, I tweeted out after the show that watching All Out was like being a kid at Christmas who got spoiled but didn't deserve it. They were well, here you go.
That.
And
it was a great tweet.
Well, here you go. And we're like, okay, I don't need any more. Well, no, here. No, I'm good. Really, this is enough. Okay, well, here. No. Look, this isn't even my big present, and you're still giving me more. Yeah, here's more. Okay. And by the end, you're surrounded by presents. You get shit falling over you, and you're like, I don't know what to do with all this. And
I could die now.
That's how I felt after All Out, where I was just like, there's so much, and I'm thinking of storylines, and I'm thinking of this and that, and I'm thinking of the matches I saw and the matches I could see and stuff, and and I'm just like, it's too much, but I love it. It's not awesome. Just one storyline. I could see them building different storylines all throughout. So okay, they went all out.
They I mean, all pun intended. They really did on this show, and it all pretty much landed. And what a better way, like they said, it would have maybe been better if Adam Cole would have been the one to finish out the night, had all the heels on top, go to black. That way you're like, oh, what's going to happen on Dynamite this week? Because the heels are on top, but bringing Bryan Danielson in. Exactly. And, and Kenny Omega even said it, I'm in the business of sending people home happy. And then sure enough, two of the biggest names in the business right now pop up. And kind of in a weird non-kayfabe way. I mean, Kenny is an executive vice president. So technically he was telling the truth. Like, he does send us home happy, and they did. So yeah, that was super fucking cool. All together, All Out was probably their best pay-per-view this year in their existence so far.
I'm trying to think. The WrestleMania when Kofi won was awesome.
Right.
And I can't really think of. Oh, and then the Survivor Series when they had all three brands. You know, I'm not sure what the years or the numbers were, but
Right.
those two were like the best pay-per-views I'd seen in a long time. And then there is this, and you know, I left just like I left the other ones where I was just like, holy fuck, that was awesome. That's how I felt afterwards.
Right.
I don't want to say one was better than the other because you know, All Out's still fresh in my mind, whereas the other ones were a couple of years ago. But you know, it was just it was like the WrestleMania 3 feeling or the WrestleMania 14.
Which, and I'm
you
guessing All Out is kind of their
I think that's their big
WrestleMania,
one. Yeah,
you know?
their WrestleMania, their Starcade, whatever.
Right. I agree.
Slammiversary, you know.
Yeah. In closing on that one, man, it was a great pay-per-view from beginning to end. Extremely entertaining, although everybody, including the people in the crowd, were probably drained by the end of the night. We all left.
Mhm.
I was giddy through the week. Like, I couldn't stop talking about it. And what else could you ask for in pro wrestling? So yeah, so that was a great show. And you know, there has been a lot that has happened since, but we're not going to get in. We're really pushing
It's
time this
we'll
episode.
just-
We got a lot to cover.
I'll just sum it up with it's a great time to be a wrestling fan.
There is no better way to put it. So we're going to go ahead and transition from our mid card to the main event, or not the main event of the night. I'm sorry. This is our mid card. We're going to do our Mount Rushmore this week. Pat has decided, because I picked the Mount Rushmore for last week and decided it was just too much fucking work to do this time around. So I asked Pat what we should do, and he went with greatest heel turns in history, the Mount Rushmore of heel turns. And this is right up my alley. This one's not hard for me at all. If you know me personally, you know
I think you and I are good.
I love heels, and heel turns specifically in wrestling is one of my favorite things ever. I love a good heel turn, for so many reasons, and we'll get to that.
I think
some
you
other
and I
time,
are going to
but-
have some. You and I are going to have some similarities.
I think so, but I'm also going to pull some that I wasn't even really thinking about when I was doing my research for this. So, if you don't mind, I'll start this one off.
The floor is yours, Luch.
So if we're going to go with the 4, obviously, Mount Rushmore of greatest heel turns, I'm not going to go, again, with any specific order. I didn't go that far into it, but so I think one that we'll probably both agree on, and I think most wrestling fans will. I'm going to go with this one first just because I think it's the most obvious, but it has to be talked about if we're going to talk about Mount Rushmores of heel turns. And that's Hulk Hogan joining NWO. I think for the history of the business, that was the greatest turn in history. Just the caliber of Hulk Hogan, his status, the fact that he was the say your prayers, take your vitamins, like the epitome. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of heel turns. There wasn't a lot of big, massive face to heel turns. So that one set the mold for the future of people have tried to copy that 1,000 times. So for obvious reasons, and we talked about it actually on episode 1 when we were talking about what if Hulk Hogan didn't join the NWO and Sting did. You know, we talked a lot about reasons why this is an obvious pick. Another one I'm going to go with, this is one of the ones that I wasn't really thinking about originally, and it makes perfect sense, is going to involve probably the greatest wrestling manager of all time. And the reason being, because anytime anyone aligned themselves with this man, Bobby the Brain Heenan, you knew automatically that this person was going to be booed the second they stood next to him in any type of positive way. Andre the Giant turns on Hulkamania by joining forces with Bobby Heenan. And it was the end of WrestleMania 3. Not mistaken,
no, it was
or the beginning
WrestleMania 3 was when they fought. It was the lead up to WrestleMania 3.
Okay, yeah. So, and just I remember, and I don't remember if I saw this one live on TV or not, but I just remember seeing Bobby the Brain Heenan standing there in the promo position, and he's talking about his newest acquisition.
Yeah,
and then what you see, the next thing you see is that Andre the Giant's walking on screen, and immediately I was like, oh fuck no, like, damn it, like there's fucking hell, dude. He did it again. He got Andre the Giant, and not that I was even. The thing is, I wasn't, and I've said this many times. I'm very open about it. I'm not a big Hulk Hogan fan. I have a lot of respect for what he's done for the business, but even as a kid, I wasn't a big Hogan fan. I was a heel guy, so I was pissed, but also kind of super excited because it came out of nowhere. Nobody expected Andre the Giant to turn heel like that. So that is another one. I'm not going to go into a bunch of honorable mentions like I did last show, but I want to also say that Shawn Michaels and the Barbershop turning on Marty Jannetty was fantastic, and ultimately completely jump-shotted Shawn Michaels' career. If not for that heel turn, who knows? And, that could be a possible what if somewhere down the future. What if he didn't turn on Marty Jannetty? That might be a fun one. So that was another one of my absolute favorites. And then, I want to say Die Rocky Die. I want to say when he went from being this, Samoan, just fantastical good guy.
Hey everybody,
Right.
I'm rocking my Via.
Nobody wanted that shit. And then, you add him to the Nation, where he still didn't say a whole lot. But then that first moment when he mentions The Rock in third person, he was a made man from that point forward. And consistently, even when he was over and loved by the fans, he was consistently one of the best heels in the company.
Oh yeah, he didn't even change his character. I love that.
Right.
He stayed the same character.
The only other one I could mention that I wanted to mention was Austin. But they didn't have a lot of
I don't think that was a good heel turn. That was a shitty heel turn. Because when it happened,
liked it, but
when it happened, a lot of people were like, "Why?"
Right.
It just.
I agree. I can't argue
too
with
late. If they did it earlier, I think it would have worked better. But
so, what about you? Where's your Mount Rushmore?
So you and I have the Hogan.
I figured
NWO. The most epic heel turn. You have the most white meat babyface turning into just Hollywood Hogan. That was brilliant.
Annoying piece of shit.
It was funny because listening to 83 Weeks and they'll do watch-alongs and stuff, and hearing Hogan talk and stuff, looking back now, you could hear that he was uncomfortable with
in the beginning. He really was, yeah.
Just like he's like, the NWO was here, and he was like fake and
obnoxious.
And it was, you and I also had Shawn Michaels turn in,
nice.
Which my favorite part of that was Bobby the Brain Heenan, which you mentioned. God damn, is there anybody better than Bobby the Brain Heenan?
No. There's not that there's nobody better, because maybe there's an argument to be had there, but there is nobody like Bobby Heenan. There can never be another Bobby Heenan.
No. But he's just like, oh look, Jannetty dove through that window to get away.
Dude, that's so gnarly.
Just watch that back. Just the back and forth between Gorilla and Heenan is brilliant. I mean, they were perfect foils for each other, because
totally agree.
Gorilla always going, "Would you stop it?" It was just brilliant.
I totally agree.
One that you and I do not have, Bret Hart turning.
I thought about it.
Yeah,
the Bret Hates America thing.
The Bret Hart turn, the double turn between Bret and
the Austin. Yeah.
Bret and Austin, yeah. It made it made Austin.
It did.
And that whole match, if you know about that match, how
fucking
Bret was like, "You need color," and Austin was like, "Vince doesn't want color," and Bret goes, "Don't worry, I'll handle it."
Dude, and he was so fucking right, man. He was right.
Because that iconic match, that iconic picture of the blood on Austin's face and it's running over his teeth and stuff, and he's just and then he passed out. Because why would you pass out from you need that extra? So
I agree.
That was brilliant. And then the other one that I was just like, oh my God. And I was thinking of a couple others, but I didn't really feel right. Mark Henry's turn when he was retiring.
Oh, the salmon jacket.
Yeah, and
Yes.
then he
That was awesome.
John Cena comes out, and and didn't that kick off the House of Pain, which
Pretty sure, yeah.
was just an amazing run. Yeah, and I loved that version of Mark Henry because
I agree.
that's
It
what
was
he needed to
fucking
be.
awesome.
Dude was he's a human howitzer or a human Abrams tank, and
Yeah.
you weren't using him like that until the very end. So, yeah, those were my four.
Yeah, and those are great for and those were very close to. I was close to picking those myself, because again, they're and there's a lot more that could be talked about as well.
Yeah,
But as far as
in
our
fact,
personal Mount Rushmores,
tweet it on Sideways in Time. Tweet us yours, and we'll give you shout outs next week.
absolutely. So as we're talking, actually, speaking of shout outs, I'm looking for the tweet for because speaking of Bryan Danielson and AEW and the All Out thing, we had tweeted out if Bryan Danielson shows up at All Out, that anybody who retweeted that would get a shout out. So
And I would make a story about how we met.
yeah, so we don't have to go too deep into that because again, we're already over an hour, which is fine. It's all good. As long as somebody is still, at least one person is still listening this far in, we're doing good.
I stopped listening 20 minutes ago.
I know you did. Damn it, man. Yeah, I don't know exactly where that tweet was. So I will say Mike Dowg, my boy Dowg, he was one of them. And we've given him a shout out like probably almost every show so far.
Yeah, dog. I remember when we met. I was hiking up Everest, and and my walking pole snapped, and I tripped and twisted my ankle. And here comes this dapper gentleman. And he was dressed in cut off sleeves t-shirt, pair of shorts, and flip flops, climbing up Mount Everest. And he was like, "Come on, dog, I got you." Threw me on his back, carried me up to almost the top of Everest, threw me down so I could hobble my way to the top of Everest, so I could say that I climbed to the top of Everest. I would have pictures, but that was on the phone that was confiscated at Arrowhead Stadium. So
Jesus Christ, come on, man.
Sorry, but yeah, that's how Dog and I met. That's how Dog. Didn't our TSA friend retweet it?
So I found it. Okay. So, and we're gonna breeze through these.
Okay.
We don't have to talk about how we met every one of them. If give it just a second here. It says my connection's unstable, so I don't know if I'm choppy for you or not.
Yeah, you're a little buffery.
Okay. Give it just a second here. Try to see if we can. Is it any better?
Yeah, you're back to normal.
All right. We'll cut that or we won't. Who cares? So I'm gonna go through the list. If we don't go through every how you met everybody, we'll space it out. We'll find a creative way of doing that later on. So
you will get your How Patriot Pat Met You story. If it's not today, it will be in the coming weeks.
If anything, we'll give it to you in person on the 17th. So from the top of the list down, let's just go with that. We had Journey Pro Wrestling. Duh. Fucking shout out every show anyways. You got a segment on every damn show. But you get a shout out in this one too because you retweeted. We also have our boy Kevin WK from 8-Bit Geek and the 3
God, I love his beard.
Wrestling Pod. Yeah, fucking sweetheart, and we love you to death. My brother Lucha Chef retweeted it. Well, look at that. View from the Top Rope. We also had the Amazing Nerd Show. We also had JCB, baby, from Banned from Ringside Podcast. And speaking of, we had Banned from Ringside Podcast retweeted it. We had our boy Patriot Pat. And then also our boy Mike, good old dog. And then we had a couple of quoted tweets here. And I think it was both from me. So yeah, anybody who retweeted that, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And we'll probably do more stuff like that so we can get you some shout outs and get us some publicity.
I was trying to get JCB to travel back in time with me. I don't know if you saw that Twitter exchange.
Frost's tips.
trying to go back to 98 because I said Jeff Hardy's still stuck in 98. He's like, take me back. And I'm like, hell yeah, Frosted Tips and Sugar Ray.
Shit. He probably had the
He
kid in
wouldn't have
play. I ain't even gonna lie. I think I've actually heard him say that before. He probably had a kid in play. He was wearing like the $500 rock shirt, like a necklace and fucking giant blunt hanging out of his mouth. Yeah. Hey, 1998 was a good time, man. You know. So
Well,
all right.
Plus, I want to shout out JCB because he's the only one on BFR that shouts out Patriot Pat. So shout out to JCB and fuck Bill and fucking what's he, Zach?
Hey,
naked.
Zach is a fucking sweetheart. Bill.
Yeah, but they don't shout me out. So Bill's small package.
They don't even shout Zach out. So leave Zach alone. Zach's
just
fucking
fucking
awesome. BFR Bill, he's kind of a prick. I'm just kidding, Bill. I love you. I swear to God, I love you. And congratulations. I haven't said it yet. I made him to say at the last show as well. Congratulations on the new baby. That's fucking super cool, and I'm excited to have another little heartbeat in the Band from Ringside family. That's super cool, man. I'm stoked for you, and Aaron. So, all that said and all that aside, let's dive right into the main event here. So, as usual,
ding, ding, ding.
Every week except for last week, because we like to jump in our time machine. We like to take advantage of the podcast name Sideways in Time. We jump in our time machine and we go back to times in history when things in wrestling happen, and we wonder what if something else had happened. And in this case, you guys voted, and actually it was a tie. So next week's show, we're going to be doing what if Paul Heyman would have had the TV time and the
financial backing
to keep ECW alive under his regime. But because there was a double, it was a tie, and this one we went ahead and we're going to go with. We're going to go back in time and do what if Eric Bischoff and his media company would have been able to successfully purchase WCW. And what would have happened if in WCW if the state of words. So let's dive right into it, shall we? So again, we're in our time machine. We go back to I think it was 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
If you don't know, just a quick brief history. Eric Bischoff was having trouble trying to get WCW was going up for sale. They knew they were going to be getting rid of WCW. Unfortunately, even though I wasn't a big WCW fan, it's always unfortunate when a big company like that has to go, because there's a lot of talent that didn't get a job after that.
There's a lot of behind the scenes people that didn't either.
Well, and the fans suffered too, because there was a company that a lot of wrestling fans enjoyed. If they didn't want to watch WWF at the time, they had WCW, and so it was a shame. But listening to a lot of the 83 weeks with Eric Bischoff and Conrad Thompson, he's also said in a lot of other interviews he had tried everything he could to get to be able to purchase WCW and be the owner, the sole owner, him and his company, to run WCW and keep it alive and keep it from being bought for basically pennies on the dollar by the competition.
I think he was going to pay 60 something million. I want to say that, I could be wrong, but I want to say it was like 50 or 60 million, and it ended up selling to Vince bought it for 5.
Yeah, so there was a lot going on there. There's a lot of details that were behind the scene that I don't really feel like going into. But just know that there were a lot of people kind of not necessarily bidding on getting the company.
There were a couple, like Jerry Jarrett was one.
Right. I think the most notable, though, in this case, is that Eric Bischoff, who had technically been running the company, at least as far as creatively and trying to get things going, aside from the short period of time he took off while Vince Russo had stepped in creatively and had a great idea that was not executed well whatsoever with the whole new breed thing. It was a disaster. We all saw Jeff Jarrett lay down for Hulk Hogan in a big feud between Russo and that whole thing. So there was a lot of things going on at this time in this company specifically. Ric Flair at this point was burnt out. He wanted nothing to do with the company. He was actually happy to see it go. And then there was a lot of young talent that had just got started over there that were like, what the fuck are we going to do? So Eric wanted to buy the company and see what he could do with it. So in this case, we're going back to that time, and we are going to kind of go over what we think would have happened had Eric Bischoff bought the company. You want to start us off?
Yeah. So he was working behind the scenes. He actually had, they were going to set up in Vegas at the Hard Rock, the parking garage on the roof. They were converting that into a concert venue / wrestling thing. And so they would have been able to film, just like TNA and Ring of Honor and stuff, dude. They would have been able to film, a month's worth of shows or whatever. Just right there in the arena. And then, eventually start going out and touring for pay-per-views and stuff. But I think, his big thing was he wanted the central location just to build up. And honestly, I like that idea. I like how TNA did it. I like how Ring of Honor and Impact do it now. And even NXT, you have that one place to where it's like, you have people that go to it instead of touring all around. It keeps your costs down. You still get a crowd. And I mean, I would do things like if you're going to all the tapings, I would tell the fans, hey, bring different shirts, or hey, we're going to move you around and stuff, so because if you careful watchers will be like, hey, that's the same guy that was at Impact last week. But anyway, so he had that set up. He had everything set up. He was working on the talent. The only thing he didn't have was the TV. He wanted to deal with Turner. Yep. And they didn't want to do anything with wrestling. Kind of funny, fast forward 20 years, and now they goes. But they didn't want anything to do with wrestling, so that was the nail in the coffin. So let's say another channel pops up, and they were like, "Yeah, we want wrestling. We saw the heyday of the past 5 years, 6 years, and stuff." So so another channel, freaking TNN, wants to get back into the wrestling game. So they offer Bischoff the TV deal. So he's got one night a week, we'll say Wednesday nights, 1 night a week, 2-hour show that he can bring WCW back. I see, and as much as people hate Bischoff and stuff, the dude was a great mind for booking, the great mind for storytelling and stuff. He knew how to tell a story. He knew how to do the hero's story.
He was kind of responsible for, WWF at the time, bringing in a little less of the gimmicks and a little more of the reality-based stuff. I mean, he's saying reality-based wrestling. I hear Eric Bischoff's voice every time I say it. Like, he was very responsible for the shift in the creative of pro wrestling.
So he's been on record saying that the people that he wanted were like Sting and Flair. But I could have, I would have seen, I think he wanted Booker. He saw a lot in Booker, but I would have seen him work. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I would have seen him working with the younger talent a lot. I mean, there was a lot of young talent that he really, really liked. That just they were getting drowned out by the NWO. Well, now NWO had run its course and stuff, so I could see him working with a Sean Stasiak, a Sean O'Hare, or a Mark Jindrak, even Hugh Morris. Helping them, a Billy Kidman, stuff like that too. All these guys had potential, and they just needed, they needed the showcase to do it. So one thing I would see, WCW still existed, is there would be kind of like AEW is now, a lot of emphasis on the youth and building up, you're building up your foundation, moving them up the card. And meanwhile, you have more new people coming in, moving them up and stuff. So I would see that. And that's one thing that I think that he could do. But the problem is you're looking at all that through the veil of the NWO, which was taking up so much time, but so I mean, you can't look back and go, well, he didn't build anybody up. And 90% of his focus was the NWO, because the NWO was what was making them money at the time.
So I agree. I do agree. I think that, and it's hard. That's one of the hard parts about this segment every week, is because it's hard to speculate what could have happened when it didn't. But in this case, we are sideways in time, so that's what we do. I think he knew that the days of Hogan, Nash, Hall, DDP, I think they would have all been crucial parts of his show, his WCW, Eric Bischoff's. But I also think that guys like AJ Styles, who kind of had a little sip of tea at the very tail end of WCW, guys like him, would have had a little bit more of a light shined on them as well. That being said, there was the rumors that Joey Styles and Don Callis were supposed to take over the commentary, which to me is kind of crazy that Joey Styles would have come anywhere near WCW. I don't know how much I believe that, because he's been very vocal about how much he fucking hated Eric Bischoff and WCW. But when they're, by that point, ECW's gone. So, do you provide your family and go call some wrestling? I think you might. And Joey Styles was a fucking fantastic commentator.
What did him on play-by-play and Callis on color?
It would have been perfect, honestly. It would have been amazing.
Oh my God.
Now, looking at it as what would have happened to the business, okay? So 2000, 2001, somewhere in there, say Eric Bischoff and his company are able to buy WCW. There's a few things that could have happened. He could have finished his NWO storyline by turning WCW into the NWO. He could have done it. Do I think that would have happened? Not necessarily. But there's always the chance that was the whole point. The whole point was to be that NWO was the takeover, and that WCW was, going to be taken over by the NWO, and the NWO would have become the new company, and it wouldn't have been a faction anymore. It would have been the brand. So there's always that possibility. But I also think because WCW was gone, NWA TNA, Total Nonstop Action, which happened, I think that was somewhere around 2005.
04, I think,
Yeah,
was
04,
when they
05.
started the weekly pay-per-views.
I think that would have actually possibly never happened, or wouldn't have needed to happen, because WCW would have been that company. They already had a lot of the talent that was the homegrown TNA talent, like a Samoa Joe, like a AJ Styles, and then obviously you had a lot of crossovers, and especially in the early days, because you had, guys like Jeff Jarrett, who were a crucial part at one time, or in quite a while in TNA, and all these other players that ended up in TNA. I think it would have. It would have been a new look. They would have completely swapped what he calls the cat's butthole logo of that old. I love that logo personally. I thought it was cool as hell, but it was that weird, the stage that had the big weird WCW logo, spiky kind of logo. He hated that.
I
Apparently.
like that one. The one I hated was that stupid red one that WWE tried to use.
Oh yeah, that was awful. That was stupid.
That was
them just trying to say, let's make something real quick because we know this isn't going to last. But again, I think the younger talent like the Sean O'Hare's would have shined, because Sean O'Hare was, I don't know, the little bit of time I was able to watch him, I thought he was fucking awesome. He was huge.
Oh, yeah.
He could move. He was quick, and he had a lot of room to grow.
He had that look. He just needed to work on promos. He had everything else.
I agree. I will say the negative shine on this. If it's anything like when Bischoff, although he was not running things specifically, let's also remember that when times got hard in TNA and they brought Eric Bischoff in, he went back in time and he went for the nostalgia acts, and he brought back in Hogan, and he brought back in Kevin Nash, and he brought back in Hall, and then he brought in like the ECW guy. Like, it became like we don't know what to do with the young talent anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling, unfortunately, that it still would have folded. I don't think WCW would have lasted. And I think something like TNA, Impact, NWA would have possibly popped up anyway. Maybe. Again, we don't know. But I don't think it would have lasted more than maybe past 2007. I think, unfortunately,
wow.
would have had less than 10-year run. Because I think Bischoff's a great creative, or at least was. But I think at a certain point, as far as being the guy who runs the company, I don't know that he would have had the right handle on it, because he would have been handing off, like he did in TNA, he would have been handing off pieces of the operations to guys like Hogan, who will not let go of certain things. He would have made himself the center of attention like he did in TNA. Which was a thing that turned most people off of TNA at that time, because with Dixie Carter in charge, who didn't know much about wrestling, she was a fan, but she didn't know much about wrestling. She just had the money to book it. Then you had Eric Bischoff as a creative guy who was mostly on screen, not necessarily in charge of creative, but you have Dixie, who was like, but Eric Bischoff is the guy, like he's the wrestling guy, and so is Hogan. Let's bring them in and they can kind of do what they want to do. I think eventually it would have gotten stale, unless Bischoff was able to get the right people behind him. So, I mean, ultimately, I don't think WCW would have lasted more than another 20 or another 10 years. And a big part of it is, where would they have gone if TNT and Turner Broadcasting didn't want them? There was the chance that they could have possibly gotten on USA, because WWE was moving to Spike, I believe, around that time, or TNN. They had moved Raw to TNN.
Yeah, that's what Spike turned into.
They were trying to get that deal with USA, which would have been a big stab in the back to WWE, being that USA not that it would have really mattered, because they left USA anyway. But the TV deal still would have been a problem. The problem is WWF, WWE at the time was still the most well established, and so regardless of what network they turned out to be on, if WWE decided, hey, we want to be back on USA, they probably would have dropped WCW. Unless Bischoff and WCW was able to fucking overpower. Unfortunately, I don't think it would have happened. And then we would have had a later, I don't know if we would have ever had the invasion angle. Maybe we would have, but it would have been in the 2010s, and then who would have given a shit? Because in my personal opinion, around 2010, WWE was suffering itself. They had Swagger, they had Del Rio, they had Punk. They had a lot of great talent too that just weren't being booked that way yet, but it was boring, man. I mean, it was the Diva era, to me personally, it's when I left.
But if WCW was still around, then we probably wouldn't have had that era. You know what I mean?
Very true.
There were, because some of those people would have signed with with WCW. I could see, I can honestly see your point, and who's to say that Bischoff wouldn't have been humbled, and he might have got that inkling of like, we got to beat Vince. That's what happened in TNA when trying to go up against
you can't beat Vince. No matter, even like right now, if we fast forward to AEW, which to me feels like a hybrid of TNA, ECW, and WCW, the best of what all of those three companies were able to pull off, and some WWF, early WWE. That's kind of a hybrid of WCW, in my opinion, especially with a lot of the talent they have over there. With Cody seems to me like a WCW guy. He doesn't seem like a WWF guy or a WWE guy, because his dad was WCW. And you got Sting, and you got DDP, and you got, so to me, that's what it feels like. But yeah, man, like I just, I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't think it would have worked out. And I think eventually WWE at that time. Who knows if it would have changed to E at that point? It probably would have. Would have probably still swallowed him up. Bischoff would have made a deal, but I think Bischoff also would have tried to make a deal where their talent got better work in the WWE, which I think would have been exciting, because think if Sean O'Hare and Kidman and all those guys, even though they would have been quite a bit older at that point, think if they would have been able to start that many years later after getting the shine from having a TV deal in WCW for a lot longer, and then WCW goes away, that era that I was bored of in WWF or WWE would have had some more excitement to their roster, because they would have picked up. I think Bischoff would have tried to stick up for his talent. They didn't have that opportunity when WCW folded the first time.
And I think this is another case, like when we were talking about the NWO, how the NWO accelerated everything. I think this is another case to where with WCW folding when it did, if Bischoff were to do this, and like you said, if it folded, we would be 10 years behind where we are now.
Exactly.
We would be in the Alberto Del Rio, Jack Swagger, Diva era. Not Jack Swagger as a diva, Jack Swagger, diva.
And then there's also, real quick, because we need to wrap it up here shortly, but maybe we would have had CM Punk in WCW, because ECW may not have happened at that point. The relaunch of ECW at that point. So we would have had maybe some of like Ezekiel Jackson and Bobby Lashley could have been WCW. You just never know. And if they would have been able to secure a TV deal, get the right talent and the right creative, who knows? Maybe we'd still have a WCW. Maybe WCW at some point could have overtaken WWE. I mean, that's a stretch, but you never know. I mean, that we can't say because it didn't happen, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but it didn't happen. So unfortunately, we can't say. But it's just interesting to think that there would have been a whole side era of wrestling that we missed out on because Bischoff wasn't able to secure the company.
Well,
So
one other thing too is I think we would have got a lot more international stars. We would have got a lot more Japanese stars. We would have got more luchadors and stuff, because
Right.
I mean, he was the one that brought
he was all about
cruiserweights
that
to-
shit.
Yeah. And so I think it would have been a little more variety.
And depending on the timing, because I don't remember exactly the timing on this, but we don't know that Eric Bischoff, if he would have been able to secure WCW, wouldn't have secured talent from ECW.
Yeah.
Because he did already. He was already starting to
Oh yeah, he had Sandman and Mike Awesome.
Well, and even aside from Hack in WCW, Sandman and all that, but like the cruiserweights and stuff. Although, from what I understand, he was one of the reasons why Chris Jericho and guys like that wanted out, because they weren't pushing him.
Yeah, but that was also the NWO storyline when that was the big
timing
thing.
wise,
So,
it didn't work out.
yeah.
I think he would have realized at a certain point that he needed those guys if they hadn't moved over. But he would have had Rhino, who was WCW or ECW's champion. He would have had, possibly Sabu, like
Taz.
That's another story for another time, because I don't know Taz's personal opinion on how everything went down when he moved companies, but in my personal opinion, they dropped the fucking ball on Taz in WWE.
Yeah.
Which may have been out of their control. Maybe it was, we don't know. I don't know a whole lot about the details on that. Maybe Taz had a part in that. We don't know.
Well, he also a lot of people didn't want to work with him because they were scared of him. They thought he hurt people, and the
And Vince
ECW
didn't
guys
see
were
that.
like, yeah, and so you have all these big names saying, "Oh no, he's going to hurt people," so they pushed him down the card, and then he ended up fucking his neck up.
Yeah. But yeah,
So,
so I mean that it would have been an exciting run, regardless of how long or how short. It would have been cool for WCW fans to have had Eric Bischoff, the guy they associated with being the guy in WCW, be able to take control and try some new things. And it definitely would have made a completely different impact on the wrestling in the future. Because again, if it would have lasted even past that 10-year mark, like I said, we don't know if it wouldn't still be around. And would AEW even need to be a thing?
I don't think AEW would be around right now.
We never know.
Because
That's part of the fun of being sideways in time.
Yeah, the Bucks got their big break in TNA. That's how they got their, when they were Generation Me. That's how
Right.
they got their big national break. So I
Yeah.
mean,
Ring
that
of
wouldn't have
Honor,
happened.
like, yeah, there's a lot of things that came because WCW disappeared. There was an opening for talent to start doing things in other companies. So in retrospect, it was probably a good thing, although it was also kind of a bad thing because, like I said, again, there was another wrestling company that people weren't able to work, people weren't able to enjoy from a fan's point of view, and the competition was gone because after they swooped it up, after the invasion angle, that's when I lost my interest. Until many years later. It wasn't until NXT started to blow up that I really gave a shit about what WWE was doing. So it took another brand or company, technically, like AEW, NXT, and TNA Impact, NWA had its ups and downs as well. They had some really good moments as well. Had it not been for WCW disappearing, we may not have seen a lot of that stuff. We may not have seen a Samoa Joe.
Yeah, I don't think we
AJ
ever would have got
Styles.
we never would have got the TNA and Ring of Honor
and we may have, but it wouldn't have been the scale it was because there wasn't anything else to compare it to.
No.
They weren't going to compete with WWE no matter how hard they tried, but they wouldn't have had need for that company if there was another massive company still around. So
I think looking back at where we are now, I think it's safe to say that WCW folding when it did was probably a good thing based on,
if not a good thing, it was good things happened after the folding of WCW.
Yeah. It set the motions to where we have multiple companies. And like I said earlier, we have 2021 where it's a great time to be a fan.
I agree.
Whereas, I think we'd be 5-10 years behind if
I agree.
You said it. That was brutal too. 2010.
It was kind of
it was not good up until.
There are people that I know for a fact loved that era, and right on. Like, I'm not knocking them for loving that era. It was an exciting time for the. Because that's Daniel Bryan got his start around that time. Again, CM Punk got his start around that time. There were a lot of young talent coming up. Miz, whether you're a fan or not, he was starting to come into his own around that time. So there was a lot of positives in WWE. I just was bored as shit by that time.
I didn't care about some of the storylines and stuff.
Right.
And
I kept up with what was going on, but I didn't watch.
But I didn't care about Daniel Bryan up until much later, 2017, 2018 and stuff.
When he choked out what's his name and got fired, I was like,
Justin Roberts.
This guy's good. So anyways, hey, I appreciate everybody listening to the show this week. Again, I apologize for the lack of a show last week, but we'll make up to you. We'll make it up to you. Yeah. We'll make it up to you sometime soon down the road. We got some cool things in the works that we want to introduce you guys to involving the show. We're going to start getting some special guest co-hosts, not interviews, but we want to add a third person from time to time to the show and see what kind of input they can add and what character they can add to the show. Again, I want to thank Journey Pro Wrestling. I want to thank Kevin WK. I want to thank my brother Lucha Chef. I want to thank View from the Top Rope, The Amazing Nerd Show, JCB. I want to thank BFR Bill, BFR Zach, Band from Ringside in general. I want to thank my boy Mike Dowd. And I want to, of course, as always, I want to thank my man here next to me, Mr. Patriot Pat. I almost called you Project Pat, which is not the same person, but equally as gnarly and cool, in my opinion. And thanks to all of you if you're listening or watching on YouTube or on our social medias. Again, you can check it right here at Podcast Kinda, at Lucha Chris TV, at Gone Patrick. Any last words, Patrick? Not last words like you're gonna die, but for the show.
I hope not.
I do too. I'll be doing this by myself again.
I want to thank everybody you thank all the listeners. Thank everybody you except for BFR Bill and BFR Zach, because they don't give me shout outs, so fuck them. But
fucking prick.
Big thank you to JCB. This was fun. Look forward to next week. And we got some exciting stuff in store in the future. So stay tuned.
Everybody. We'll see you next week. And you want to say your keep marking out or whatever?
Yeah, keep fucking marking out.
Awesome. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.